We're going to draw a pansy. Most of you would recognize these being a purple and yellow flower that you see growing in pots or low to the ground. So we're going to look at this throughout this class. We're going to look at different ways to, let me move this in. Okay, hang on guys. Okay, we're going to look at different ways to draw flowers. The main point of this class is obviously drawing, but I want you to strengthen your drawing techniques. I want you to, when you walk around, be very observant about the plant life around you. It's summertime, you'll be outside, you'll be moving, you'll be going to the park or lakes or on vacations, and you'll see lots of different flowers and leaves and trees. So this is a great time to think about what you learn in class each week and to observe, because artists always observe, to observe what you see and think about how you would draw that. That's how your drawing skills will grow. So the main thing is I have a very, very faint drawing up here. I have left it more reference sketch for me, but I'll pull you in just a little bit and I'm going to scoot to the side. So you may be able to see it once the camera decides to focus as it's trying to get in there. There it goes. But it's right here, but it's mostly composed of 3 circles. It's very faint right now. Let me bring it closer to you. You're going to see as we do this, but this is what our sketch is going to look like. And then we're going to darken this and do shading. When I sketch this, I'm going to be much darker. It was my sketch I did for my reference. I'm going to be much darker so that you'll be able to see it. But if we notice, the blooms are going to look like 3 circles. So what are we going to do? We're going to grab our pencils and we're going to put right in the middle of your paper. So let's say this is my paper right here. Right here. I want you to kind of think about your composition. I'm going to put a circle about in the middle of my paper. Now do this lightly, because we're going to erase a lot of the circle. We've got a second circle over here. It's a little bit up and off to the side, about the same size, maybe a touch bigger. Don't worry about it being a perfect circle, because again, we're going to erase this. This is just to help us see our composition. Then we're going to have a circle that's going to touch both of our circles and go behind a little bit. So we're going to have it do this. See how it goes behind a little bit like that. So it kind of looks like 3 little balls sitting right there. That's going to be our reference for how we're going to do the pansy. Now the pansy has 5 petals and it has something that looks, its center looks a little bit like a triangle. So to do that, right in the center of this, I am going to do a triangle. It kind of looks like I could make a little face with some eyes and a smile. We could have 3 little people watching us, because that looks a little bit like a nose, doesn't it? Well, think about that. The nose is in your center of your face. We're going to make the nose or the triangle in the center of our pansy. So from that nose, that triangle, we're going to come out and we're going to come out like this. And notice I have a little bit of an organic line. So it can have a little bit of a wave to it. I don't want it to necessarily be perfect. Pansies have a lot of fluttery type of feel. Their petals are very soft and have a lot of movement, and their edges are not smooth. They've got some wiggle to them. So we want to be able to transfer that to our organic line. So to make it feel more like the petal, we're going to change this circle edge. So if you want to, mine won't really erase because it's charcoal. You can erase just this line between here and here. Now in the notes, a lot of times I talk about an eraser. I don't like to use, I'm looking for eraser. I don't really use these pencils, but I don't like to use this eraser. In fact, in the studio, this is what all of ours look like. So everyone goes, can I have an eraser? And I'm good, because you can't use this one. The reason why is those pink erasers are really bad. They're bad erasers. They're great if you're doing a math problem and you just want to erase what your end equation is, but they're terrible if you're doing artwork. So what I look for is an eraser that's going to remove my drawing, but not leave anything on the paper. The pink erasers will leave what I call schmutz on the paper. So I use a magic eraser. Those are great. You can get those office or hobby supply stores, art supply stores. I use a black eraser. I'm looking around to see what I might have handy for y'all. I really have a magic, and well, that's what I have. I have a magic today. So I'll send you a couple brands. It doesn't matter as long as you like that eraser. A kneaded eraser, which you may use, is one you pull apart, is really more for charcoal. I find it doesn't do as great a job on sketching, but some people like to do it because they can take that edge and they can point it very tightly. Can you tell I've been in the studio all day? I'm covered in paint. So they pull that kneaded eraser and they get a nice edge. So that's my little quick spiel on erasers. I'll send you a couple brands that I like, but just if you can, try to use a separate eraser. Okay, so we've got that erased. We're going to come out and we're going to take that end and we're going to make like a little half moon, almost like a C right there. I'll bring you in. And then we're going to come down. We're kind of following that edge, but just give it a little bit of a wiggle. It doesn't matter that it's exactly like mine. We want it to have that organic flow. So I'm going to try and move. Oops, sorry guys. Move out a little bit so you can see a little better. So we've got our nose, and now if we add a little mustache, we could make a Santa Claus. So it kind of reminds me of a Santa. Little smile right there. So if you need to know how to draw Santa, there's the bottom. Then it almost looks like there are going to be two wings that come off. So I'm coming to the top of my triangle. I'm going to come off, and I'm going to come like this. Then I'm going to give my organic shape. Now I'm not going to come right to this edge. I'm going to come a little bit below because that petal is right underneath. So see where I go? Sometimes that petal's right in front. Sometimes it's right on top. I can erase this little bit of circle if I want to. Or you can do it, follow the instructions, and then you can do it at the end. Either way. So then it's almost as though that looks like a wing. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come off. See how I've got a little wiggle to my lines? It's almost as though I want your hand going over valleys and streams, like you're creating these organic lines. That uneven, undulating line. That's a great word because it sounds, it's almost an onomatopoeia. Undulating. It's going up and down. So then we've got this line right here. We really need to do two more petals, but you only see this main one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up right here. So I've got petal 1, petal 2, petal 3, and then I'm going to come up right here and I'm going to go up a little bit taller than my circle, come back, touch my circle, and come all the way around behind. Now I'm going to erase that circle line so it's not confusing. Again, I'm drawing with charcoal, so you'll be able to see a little bit of my map where I've gone. You can kind of lightly see that circle in there. If you're doing that circle, that's why you draw that lightly with pencil. Then that fifth petal just pokes, look, it just pokes right behind there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That fifth petal is just make a little bit of an appearance, like it's peeking over the couch. Now, the interesting thing about pansies is they have this darkness that falls on these 3 petals, but these petals stay nice and yellow or purple or white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave myself a note. Anytime I'm sketching, I try to put something in that's going to give me that information because I'm going to be shading after I draw this sketch. So right in here, this is my note. It's going to be where it's going to be darker when we shade it. So just put in a little area like that with very uneven lines. We can adjust it when we shade it, but that's my note that this needs to be darker right there. it's thicker on this bottom first petal. Then when we come over here, we're going to do the same. It's almost looks like a little monster right now. If I was drawing a little kids class, we could turn this into a monster. And see how it's all like little flames shooting out right there. But that's my note right there, and it's going to make sense when we add a little bit of shading. So that's our first flower. Started with a circle. We added this in here, 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 and here. But we're going to repeat the same thing again. It's going to look a little bit differently, but it's the same 5 petals. They're just going to be, we're going to have a different viewpoint. Let's come over here. We're going to jump on this petal. Now, what do we start with? Remember our triangle? That looks like a little nose. We put that triangle right in the center. This does kind of look like this could be a little, I added some eyes right there. See, you learned something new. If you just observed, you could turn this into something else. I could have you turn this into 6 things and we could all come up with something different. A crab, a monster, all sorts of things. Okay, we've got our nose here. What I want you to do is this first petal is going to fall a little bit longer, but it's going to come down from the nose or the triangle, that center part. And we're going to just come along, getting a very uneven bottom. And I'm going to come back over here so I know where to end. Now, notice I came out that much below the circle. We wanted it a little bit longer. I'm going to take my eraser and just try to erase a little bit. It's not going to do a complete job on that charcoal, but it's going to give you that idea. And then we're going to get these 2 petals over here. So we're going to start from the top of the triangle, exactly same way. Notice how I make my pencil move and change lines. So what I'm doing is as I draw, instead of drawing a line like this, I'm drawing a line like this. Now, this is something we call line quality. If you're able to do this, this is something to practice on a separate piece of paper. What you can do is practice pressing hard, then light, hard, then light, hard, then light. So do you see how I get this change in my line? This is line quality. The more you draw, the more you'll be able to develop this line quality. So as I go on these petals, I can make them feel already that delicateness by line quality right there. Right now, I want you to just practice that idea by, instead of straight lines, moving your pencil along. So you can erase that part of the circle if you want, or you can wait till we get to the all the way around. Let's do the second wing off the top of the nose. Same thing. So we're really kind of sticking to our circular form, but we're expanding it and developing it a little bit more. I don't want anyone to be confused. So I'm going to erase those a little bit. So that one looks like a little angel to me. This is the fun part of drawing. As you draw along, you know what you're making, but you might find different ideas as you draw. We've got our bigger petal. I'm going to start right here. See, I'm not quite on the end. And I'm going to come up to about my circle and go along the top, coming back in. I'm going to erase that circle right at that top because that may get confusing for you. We're not going to do a lot of petal foldovers. You don't have that. You'll understand what that means in class 2. That's when we really start getting some dimension on the petals. So we've got petal 1, 2, 3, and then we've got the next petal. Remember, it just peeks behind. It's that very end petal. So we're going to put it in right there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you think, remember we start out with a triangle, it looks like a nose to me on the actual plant. So I just put a nose, call it a nose, we've got that, and we build those petals around the center. We're gonna leave that little note of that dark area. So something that kind of looks like flames coming out. What I'm doing is I'm coming out and then in, out, in, very unevenly, but something like that, okay? And I'm gonna do it even more so along the bottom. It doesn't go all the way to the edge. So like that. It will make sense when we color it in. Okay, so you've got these two. We're going to jump over and we're going to do same song's third verse. The difference is when you're drawing, you draw what's in front. Sorry, guys, I'm so close to my computer. I keep knocking it. When you draw what is in front and then what's behind, see how you don't see all of it. So if I have this eraser and then I have my pencil, it's going to be a little bit behind it, or it might just be partially behind it. So our pansies, our two pansies are in the front. We don't see, we know that the rest of the pansies there, but we don't have to draw it because we don't see it with our eye. So this is our center right here. It actually is going to come any direction you want to put it, our nose, as I like to call it. And then from here, we're going to bring a line out. And you see how we just tied into the, we know that that petal is behind this one. So we don't need to draw anymore. Then we're going to draw petal 2. And it comes in right here. So it goes behind. This is where it can get confusing in drawing, but once you get that things are in front and then they're partially behind, it'll help you really with your placement of drawing. Petal 3, over here. I came out pretty far past my circle on that one. Petal 4 takes up most of the remaining space. I'll put it there. And there's no right or wrong. Yours does not need to look exactly like mine. And then I'm just going to go ahead and erase my circle because I'll be able to see it. I'm going to give myself petal 5 right there. That little bit of petal 5 that we see in the corner. Then we leave our note. Right there. Okay, now we're going to put in our stems, and we've got a bud, and we'll add a few leaves, and then we're going to do shading. So the way these classes work, the first part, I just give you the sketch mock-up. That's very important. The sketch mock-up helps you do all those observations. You leave notes to yourself. Just like when you're studying, or if you were listening to a video and you needed to take notes, or a lecture from a professor, you would write your notes. Well, the same thing in art. When I'm sketching, I'm leaving notes. Those are notes or reminders to me that I need to do something in that piece. Sometimes it's that I need to darken there, or sometimes it might be that I need to remember to not darken it. I need to leave it light. So those, when I talk about leaving notes, it's just we're leaving something to help us remember what to do as we go further in our piece. The second half will be our shading. The nice thing is you can watch these in 2 sections. You can watch the first approximately 30 minutes. Some flowers will take a little longer to draw. Some flowers will take a little longer to shade. But what you can do is watch the first 30 minutes and get your sketch, and then you can play with it, or watch the first 30 minutes, get your sketch, and look at the watercolor. The next thing you can do is watch the entire video and learn your shading, what we're going to do for that piece. So I put in the notes, if you want to have colored pencils. Every once in a while, I might make a suggestion about doing something with charcoal or colored pencils or a different medium. You do not have to have those by any means, but I like to just offer little tips and tidbits that might be fun for you to explore and keep your artwork going. So let's get back to drawing. We're right over here. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to draw a bud. Now it's going to look a little funny because I'm going to put something that looks like 3 leaves, but I don't want you to connect them. Just like that. So just 1 leaf. I come out, I come to a point. I come out, I come to a point. I come out, I come to a point. Something like that. Doesn't have to look exactly like that, but this is the base. If you can think of it, our bud's going to come out. You're going to see in a minute from here. So we're going to leave that spot. So then from this one, we're going to come out and do a long leaf. Kind of looks like a carrot a little bit, if you think of that. Let's add another long leaf. Right here, long and skinny and smooth. It's actually where the bud is opening up. So we've got that little section right there. We've got something that kind of comes out, looks like a carrot. We've got this that does this. And then over here, remember how we talked about that third is behind? Look, this third one comes behind like that. We don't see that full, just comes behind and pokes in. That's understanding where things fall in space, spatial relationships. That's important here. So that's the opening for our petal. And then look what you did. You just made a pansy bud. So that's going to be the little bud in the center there. Now, it basically is an oval like this, but they always have a little bit of an organic line. Remember that undulating line? Well, we've got some things floating in space. We know they need to grow, so let's give them some stems. So right from here, we're going to come out and we're going to come down to our paper. That's 1 line. It comes out from about right here. You know, if I think I'm going to go that way, and then we're going to draw a second line right next to it. It's going to be parallel. And we're going to pull it all the way down. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom of your paper, but that way we're grounding our images that are floating around here. So from here, we're going to give this stem, we came up, we've got our leaves, our bud, we've got our stem right here. We're going to give it a leaf. So from here, I'm going to just draw a line out. That is a note to myself on how long I want my leaf. That kind of gives me a place where I know to come back here and to go this long. So I'm going to go out above that line and watch this. I'm going to come in and then come in and then come in, out, in, all the way to that point. I'm going to come in. I'm going to come in and I come out a little bit, in, out, in. Don't worry, we're going to make several of these. So that was your first practice on that one. So that idea gives us the leaf. Now this one, we're going to give a stem and I want it to go behind the leaf. So this stem comes down from here, right there. Oh, it's going to grow right out of our paper. I love it. Start to see our flowers developing. So now we have a stem for our bud and a stem for our first pansy. We might not put in too many stems. We don't have to put in all our information here, but let's go ahead and add a leaf. Now leaves, you can see from the front or you can see them from the side. We're going to do them the same way. I'm going to come out from this and I'm going to put that line. Remember that same line? I come about as far as here. I'm not quite as long as the flower. So remember, we always like relationships. Not quite as long as the flower. You can make your leaf as long as you want to, but we're only going to do that out, in on one side. I'm going to start from the base so you can try it a different way. What do I mean by out, in? Up, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, and then I'm just going to connect back to my line. That's half a leaf. You could do it on the other side and make a full leaf, but sometimes when the leaves are off to the side, you only see half a leaf. So let's try it with a full leaf over here. Let's put our line out. Start at the top or the bottom, whichever you felt more comfortable. And out, in, out, in, out. And now I'm in, out, in, out, in. These tips are rounded. Out, in. See how we're getting those leaves? This is great if you're not used to drawing leaves, just to practice this whole, draw that line and go out, in, out, in. See what I mean? That kind of thing, because you'll get so many, like this will look almost like an oak leaf there, but you can recreate that idea. Sometimes it's tiny serrations. That idea is what you see. So we're gonna do one more leaf because I so want you to practice, but you know what? We're gonna tuck it behind, so you only have to do part of it. So up at the top, just like that. The same thing. And because it's behind that pansy, you only see it right there. Okay, we're gonna put in one more stem and two more leaves. So let's put in this stem. This stem is going to go behind our bud. This is a really good in spatial relations, especially for our younger ones that are drawing, or anyone who's really new to drawing. But you know it goes all the way behind, but see how that places that adds dimension to your picture by having the stem behind the bud. You get that. So we've got that. Let's draw our leaf out. I'm going to give it a little more. We're going to advance a little bit. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to come up, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. And then I'm going to come back around. And at this base, I'm going to kind of flip it up. So we're getting a little bit, as you get to that, getting to that point, it's going to give it more of that flow. So I tucked one more leaf in. It's behind most of the things. You can do it if you want to, because you don't see a lot of it. It will make more sense in watercolor. But okay, guys, exactly 30 minutes on the dot, and you have 3 pansies on your picture. Now we're going to turn them into pansies. So I'm going to be using, again, I'm using charcoal. So my charcoal is going to shade much darker on my paper than yours. I do that because it's easier for you to see. Charcoal also has the ability to move and smear, while your graphite does as well. It won't do it quite as much as mine. So I'm going to try to not let it smear as much as possible, and might switch back and forth between graphite. In fact, I may even start, let me look at my graphite. Here, let me find a soft one. If you don't know what the letters mean, if you haven't taken a class with me before, the letters B is soft, H is hard. If you happen to buy drawing pencils or charcoal or sketching pencils or pens, you will notice that lettering. The higher the number, the more of that attribute it has. So if it's 6B, it's very soft. If it's 2B, it's pretty soft. It's just a little softer than a normal pencil. If it's H, it's hard. If it's 6H, it's very hard. What is the difference between a hard and soft? A soft pencil will leave more behind. It's soft. So as you draw that lead or charcoal or graphite, more of it goes onto the paper. That results in a darker line. If it's hard, it's not going to want to release its lead or graphite or charcoal. I guess nothing has lead in it anymore, but we still call it that. And so you're going to get a very pale line, very tight. Most of the people who use a 6H would be drafting or drawing buildings. That would be used in architecture. It's not used as much in artwork, but I do know some artists that use it. So I tend to like soft pencils. I like a lot of medium on my papers. So the first thing we're going to do at this point, you can take a break. You can come back and watch the recording, or you can stay with me and shade your picture. Come back if you want to at any time. I never want you to be frustrated. I want you to enjoy drawing. So we're going to go straight to our notes. The first thing that we know is that these are going to be dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color those in. Now, the way I am shading is I am taking my pencil and I'm moving it back and forth. So I'm doing this, just like this. See how this is a 2B, so it's not super soft. If I do it with charcoal, let's see how much charcoal is going to come off. But I'm just moving it back and forth. You can also take it to the side and do it that way. So I'm going to fill in these dark areas that we made as notes for ourselves right here. But don't worry, we'll probably darken these in darker, but I want to make sure we get those in. Now, in all drawing, you want to make sure you have your full value scale. Value, value, value. What is value? Value is dark to light. So we want to make sure we go dark all the way or light all the way. We'll talk about value more next week. But you want to make sure you have every shade on your value scale somewhere in your picture. What that does is that helps you get dark enough and light enough. Look already where we put our notes in, how different that makes our picture look. So we're filling those spots in, knowing that they're dark. Now, when I come back, because I'm going to want to darken my lines, I'm going to come back in and darken them even more. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your pencil and I want you to just rub over it again, right up against where the nose is. Okay, just come right up against that. Now here is the key, and this takes a while to perfect. You don't want to press so hard that you're mad at your paper. You want to let the medium do the work for you. So you layer and 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 you layer some more, and then you layer after that. But that's how you build up your darks. You layer and you layer. So we're going to do that on all three of our pansies. We're going to come right up against. You layer and you layer and you layer. Now you can do, if you're at home and all you have is your computer paper, something you pulled out of your printer and a number 2 pencil, you can do it. Go on. You don't have to have special tools to do sketching. That's the nice thing. That's why I would encourage you to take a sketch pad with you, go around, and when you see things, and you might see some of the details we drew today. So when you see that serrated edge, or that in out on that leaf, or that organic movement on the petals as we did it. So I'm just darkening in here. Now this is an area, if you did have colored pencils, where you actually could come in with blacks and browns and just in that dark area, even if the rest of your pencil lay to sketch, you'd see that it's actually quite lovely. Okay. So let's get back to shading. We're not going to do oodles and oodles of shading on these because I think on the pansy, this dark area is so important that I really want it to stand out. But what we will do is we are going to shade anywhere that there is something that lays on top. So right here, these are laying, our number 1 petal lays on top. So right up against that edge, let's shade that right there. See what I'm doing? Just right up against it. Super subtle. right up against that edge, right there. See that line? Oh yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. So what we're doing is we're making a shadow line. We're going to do it on the same side, right up against that edge. And what that's doing is dark pushes back, light comes forward. You see how when we have just that little bit of shading right there, how it pushes that forward. Okay, so these are behind. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to shade right up against them, right there. And what happens? So as I shade, I'm shading where that line is. What happens is it's very subtle. You see this? Right in there. Dark, anywhere we shade, pushes it away. It puts it away in anything that's light. So it makes that edge, even though it's just the color of the paper, it pushes it forward. So when we take number 5, remember how that number 5 petal is always peeking behind? It's way in the back. It's still a player, but it's right there and it's just poking. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to add just a little bit of shading along here. Just because I just want to subtly add along there. Okay, this is going to have the least shading of any flower. Just so you know, I really want to make this to be an introductory course. I want this to be your first lesson where you feel comfortable, where you know what to expect. Now, right along here, there's a line across our nose. So we're going to put that line in there. And it's really 2 parts. So I put a little line right here. Right there. See that little line? We're going to repeat this again. So what did we do? Come over here. This is behind. So on the petal that is behind, this petal, number 1, petal number 1 is in front. So I'm shading on petal number 2 so that it's behind. I'm pushing that petal number 2 behind it, just so you know where everything. Petal number 3 is also behind. So I'm going to shade on petal number 3 right up against the edge of petal number 1. Right there. Yeah. Up here, same thing. Remember petal number 4, it's that nice big one at the front. So we've got a lot to shade behind. Petal number 5 is almost all in shadow. We're just going to get that one right there. Don't worry, if I ever go too fast, you can always stop and rewind, or you can keep going and ask a question if you're live. I'm going to color a little bit along that bottom petal. Let's go up to our top. Our third pansy is behind. So we're going to have a little extra shading to do, but let's shade it the way we've shaded the others and then we'll add in. So remember, petal 2 is behind petal 1. Same way you shaded the others. But petal 2 is also behind this one. So shade up against there. It's a little bit behind. Petal 3 is behind petal 1. So we're going to come in there. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Petal 4, remember, I'm going to go all through that one. And then petal 5 is poking out right here. Oh my heavens, there it is. But petal 1, we've got to shade right up against where it is behind the other pansy. We've got to push it back, right. Okay. So already you can start to see our pansies come to life. There's a lot of shading we can get in too, but I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on those leaves and that bud. And I think it's where you can keep on playing with this one, but it gives you a great introduction. Well, I'm just gonna shade my stems. It's my note that they're here. It's gonna darken them and give them some weight on the paper. Feel free to color them in. We're just going to be simple on these today. Way we know where they are, especially that we have some coming behind. We get that continuation. Remember, I'm using charcoal, so you can see it on there. Okay, let's talk about our bud. So our leaves, this is the dark. I'm going to come right here, right where we put that. That's the darkest spot on our leaves. Let's see if I can get even closer. There we go. So right here, I'm going to shade those first leaves we did. Just kind of get that all shaded in there. And I'm going to shade a little bit up into each petal. But this one's behind, so I have to shade the whole one. Can you see what I just did? I'll even bring you in a little closer, right up against that one. We just want to give it some dimension. So I came along with my pencil and I darkened in this area. I shaded or put a little pencil down on here and on these top two, and then I darkened in this bottom one. And for my bud, I'm going to come in right along here. Right up, remember where the leaves are? That's behind. And I'm going to darken that so that it comes out. And I can even darken it more. I'd like to. Okay, so then we're going to get to our leaves. Now, the nice thing is we're going to really go and do 1/2 of your leaf. So just take it and fill in on 1/2 of the side of your leaf, just like that. Just give it a light shade all the way across. And as though that line continues to the end, we're just going to fill in that half. So we filled in that half. Once you just give it a shade overall, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start darkening. I'm going to darken right up against, this will be a little darker shade. Let me pull in. Let's see if this one will come across darker. Sometimes what's going on in the studio doesn't always translate to the camera, so I always have lots of pencils ready to make sure I can get the information to you. Let's see, we're going to darken right up against there. Right up against the center of the leaf. And then you're going to repeat that on all your leaves. So I'm going to tend to take this bottom one right here. And notice I'm doing the bottom side of the leaf. That's because it's probably focusing away from you. So let's fill in that half all over. And then you're going to darken up along the veining. It's kind of a simplified way to do it right now. Same thing, I'm going to come to this leaf right here. And then I'm going to darken up along the veining. You can come back and do the other sections of your leaves, but that contrast where we're changing it. Now in this one, we're going to go all the way around the whole section of the leaf because we only see that half. right there. And then we're going to darken it up right where it connects to the flower. So give us some pop right there, kind of along the, and darken it along the veining, same way, right there. And then we have 2 more leaves. And then paint in that lower one and then darken it along the veining. One more leaf to go, guys. So what you have are 3 pansies. You've done a bud, you've done leaves, you've done some shading. The nice thing is you'll be able to take this same technique and apply it to all the other flowers. So this is pretty simple. The thing that really makes that pansy stick out is that center. This one has the least amount of shading of